Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'll try to get everything done in 8 minutes. Basically, we're operating both in the U.S. and in Europe. In the U.S., we have our own sites, so the COVID hasn't caused us a problem. Although in Europe, we've had a little trouble getting patients to treat in our glio, and I'll go through that. I'll cover these topics. We have basically the products, we produce them ourselves in Germany. On the left, you'll see the nanoparticles, which are iron oxide-coated particles, which we use for the treatment. On the right-hand side is the nanoactivator, which is a modified MRI machine with an alternating magnetic field. And the nanoplan is our software simulation that we use primarily in glio to estimate where to set the machine operations. Now, we've treated about 120 patients on glio, and we've treated about 49 patients in prostate. Others we've treated in Europe, but I'm focusing on focal treatment of prostate in the US and glio treatment in Europe. We have the CE mark for the glio treatment, so we're actually billing for that. And what we have is defined a treatment where many times before you do anything with these patients, they end up with symptoms that, and then they're analyzed and they basically have a tumor of about 20 cc's in size. And so the standard practice is to remove that tumor and basically treat them with radiation afterwards or chemo, although chemo is not very effective. What we have developed, or what Magforce AG has developed over the years, is that we coat the outside surface of the resection with the gauze that's used to prevent bleeding with our particles, and then we basically heat those particles in the activator and kill whatever cancer that the surgeon has not been able to remove, which is usually there's always something they can't remove. And so that's why in this glio it comes back within 8 months to a year. You have a tumor appears. So this is our process. We're getting very good results in Europe, and the overall survival now is north of 25 to 30 months. Now, this is a nice market. It's basically about 150,000 patients a year could benefit from this. In Europe, we have about 11,000 glio cases a year. So we're focusing primarily in Europe, where we have the CE mark, and essentially developing our sites in Europe, which can treat about 100 to 150 patients each. So we're well on our way with the glio using the nanotherm technology. And what we're planning when we complete the FDA in the US, when these cancers reappear in the brain, which they generally do as small cancers, we would then treat them focally with our technology from our prostate study. Now, looking at prostate study, we decided to use this technology primarily to treat those patients that have been triggered out of active surveillance programs. And active surveillance programs are primarily in existence in the US for various reasons, and there's about 300,000 men involved in these programs. And so we're focusing on that. And basically, we convinced the FDA that this is a device, not a drug, as most nanoparticles are, and we're well on our way in our clinical trial. Now, what we have in the clinical trial is we've developed three focal treatment centers in the US. And what these consist of is, on the left-hand side is the equipment that you use for a targeted biopsy. We were told that this was coming on the market by the FDA in 2017. We've adapted this. So what we do is when basically a lesion is identified under the MRI, which is pretty standard active surveillance, then they do a targeted biopsy to make sure it's cancerous. We use the same equipment. We've modified the software and so on and so forth to where we now inject the particles into the tumor as identified by the biopsy. Then we confirm that we have the right concentration in the tumor and the location with a portable CT scan, and then the patients go in our activator for anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes at no more than 50 degrees centigrade totally in that deposit, but that's more than enough to ablate any cancer. It only takes about 10 or 12 minutes at 50 degrees to ablate any cancer. So that's our procedure. We have and these sites can treat about 700 patients a year, and it's a one-day procedure. They're in and out in one day. Now, this is what it looks like in one of the patients. In other words, you can see the particles, the red, the heating. We get about 50-some degrees. This was about 58. And within 2 to 3 millimeters around the deposit, which we know exactly where it is, we see that we do not exceed 41 degrees, and basically, which will not damage any tissue. So our results so far have been very encouraging. Our stage 1 showed very little side effects. We had a little difficulty in the first 6 or 7 patients adapting the German technology into this application. We finally figured our way through that in the last 3 patients. We've now completed stage 2 with excellent results, and we're moving on now to where we'll be going through the final stage, which is 2B or 3. Now, what you see here is that on stage 1, because basically we were developing it, and the FDA was good about letting us do this with humans, because we had to show that, number one, that our procedure did not interfere with definitive therapy in case we failed, which would be radiation or surgery, and we picked surgery here so we could actually get the prostate out and look at the footprint of the ablation. So when stage 1, as we were developing this technology from Germany, we really only covered about 35% of the CTV, which is the clinical target volume that you're trying to ablate. However, we did figure out how to what we had to do to essentially make this work, and then you see in stage 2A, we covered over 90%. And so we were very effective in terms of basically hitting the target, knowing what's there, and then, of course, ablating it. And we've looked at what is the amount of material 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters beyond the deposit, and it was less than about 11 milligrams of iron per cc, and it takes about 25 to 30 to even heat. So we clearly did not, and all the pathology showed that we did not show any damage outside of 1 to 2 millimeters from the surface of the deposit. Now, it's a big market. There's about 250,000 cases in the U.S. of prostate cancer. Of course, most of them go into active surveillance, where it doesn't exist outside the U.S. At this point in time. And these are the patients then that are basically looking for a focal therapy rather than doing definitive therapy when they move from low grade to intermediate risk. And it's a huge opportunity, but also it's really, we're getting a lot of enthusiasm from the urologists and from the patients that have experienced this, because its side effects are so minimal. There's about 1.4 million new cases in the rest of the world, but those are usually high-risk patients that they diagnose, so they go to surgery. Eventually, active surveillance will find its way into Europe, but it's not there right now. And this is the final slide here, and thank you very much, and a real pleasure talking with you. Thank you.